Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Robert Kraft's mono complete Webern box, which is, of course, is not complete. It's the complete Webern with opus numbers, plus a couple other things, and minus a bunch of other things. That's sort of the best way to describe it. This is a legendary set. And I want to say right away that this box was reviewed by ClassicsToday.com's ace reviewist, Jed Disler, with sound clips, and I'm going to post the link to that written review in the description of this particular video so that insider members can go and listen to the sound clips, which are comparative versions of the Webern Symphony conducted by Robert Kraft. Now, this was a labor of love. Robert Kraft, as we all know, is beloved as the guy who was responsible for helping late Stravinsky become late Stravinsky, and as the guy who introduced him to 12-tone composition. Robert Kraft is also reviled as the man who introduced Stravinsky to 12-tone composition, which I think was most unfair. I knew him rather well. He was really a delightful guy, a charming guy, and a brilliant man. Whoa, was he smart. Oh, he was so smart. He liked to use very complicated words. He was like a walking dictionary. And he was musically extremely gifted. And so this set was a pioneering effort. It's all in mono. It has some amazing performances and some really scruffy performances. Among the amazing performances, we find Anything Sung by Marni Nixon, which is a lot of the songs. Now, some of you may know who Marni Nixon was. She was the voice of Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady. She was also the voice of everybody in Hollywood. She had some voice. She had unbelievable perfect pitch, number one. She had a voice of incredible range and purity, and she was totally comfortable, completely comfortable, amazingly comfortable, doing popular music and art songs, classical art songs. So when, for example, she's singing Noch zwingt mich Treue, you don't expect to hear her break into Just You White, Henry Higgins, Just You White. No, it's not going to happen. She's completely idiomatic in everything that she does. She was one of the most gifted singers of the 20th century and one of the most versatile. She is a real name. Remember that name, Marni Nixon. So she's fabulous. And as Jed pointed out, because he's the piano guy particularly, he's also one heck of an operatic and vocal guy, but the pianist here, Leonard Stein, is actually superb. Also one of the reasons to get this. And, Robert Kraft was supervising everything. I mean, he didn't really need to supervise Marni Nixon and Leonard Stein, I expect, but he gets credit for it anyway. The scruffy bits involve orchestral playing for the most part. Solo instruments are quite good, but orchestral playing and choral singing, of course, which is also a little bit iffy. It always is in 12-tone music, unless you're the Stuttgart Kammerchor or one of those unbelievable modern choral groups now that can sing anything at sight. But in these days, in the 1950s, and these were all recorded between 1954 to 56 in mono, Webern had no performance tradition. I mean, he was only rather recently dead. I mean, a decade and a few years. And it was extremely difficult for people to do then. Things have gotten much trickier since then, and Webern isn't quite as hard. But I still believe there's a great deal of difficulty in giving the music the necessary warmth and meaning, because, Webern, I mean, it's so sparse and so attenuated that it can very easily just sound like a squeak, bloop, eek, screech, blap, oop, eek, like that. And some of this does. It does sound in places, I'm curling it up here, it does sound in places like they are sight reading the notes. And as Jed also pointed out, it could have been, given the time constraints, that they were more interested in simply achieving accuracy than the actual, interpretive, expression that Webern may have had. Then, on the other hand, some people would claim Webern had no expression interpretively behind any of his music. It's really very, very interesting. And the question that we need to answer was, do you need this? Now, there are two answers to that question, two very, very straightforward answers. One is no. Why? Because if you love Webern, there's been so much great Webern since this. Really great Webern. I mean, people who really, really, really knew their Webern, from Michael Gillen up on to, Pierre Boulez, who did a complete Webern twice, and, Dohnanyi doing the orchestral stuff, and Karajan, and people. I mean, there's just, chamber groups galore. The music no longer holds many terrors for contemporary artists, and they're even comfortable with it. On the other hand, and despite the mono sound and despite the scruffy orchestra and whatnot, it is true. It is absolutely true that, first of all, Webern people tend to be rather hardcore, so they may want this anyway. It is a historically important series. It would be more important if they included the complete notes that came with the original recordings. Big, extensive, wonderfully written notes by Robert Kraft, as opposed to a worthless little booklet with just, the track listings inside. But, okay, they released it. That in itself is a miracle that Sony released it. And I also have a sentimental sort of attachment, and I shouldn't be. I should be completely cold and objective, I know. But the fact that Robert Kraft did this, I think, is a remarkable thing, and it deserves some recognition. And I'll bet a lot of people actually go out and grab this just because of its historical value. They'll listen to Pierre Boulez, but they'll own this, and they can say, "Oh, I have the original Robert Kraft monos." It was the beginning of a new era in music, in recording, and it's one of those amazing things that Sony actually allowed it to happen, that there were people there working in the classical music division who understood its importance and allowed it to take place. So it's entirely up to you whether you want this or not. As I said, you can go over to ClassicsToday.com if you're an insider and read Jed's review in greater detail than I'm going to get into here, and listen to a couple clips so you can make the comparison yourself. But I'm very happy to have this because I'm an old fart, and I have this, like I said, attachment to these things that are historically interesting. And also, even though it's mono, it's quite listenable. There's no problem here with any of the sonics. You hear very, very clearly what Webern was up to, maybe too clearly, maybe clearly enough for you never to be interested again in what Webern was up to. It's a different situation with every listener, but a very, very nice reissue, and I'm happy to see it. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me. Take care.